Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Diploma Postgraduate Diploma Programs, Diploma in Creative Writing in English, DCE, DCE-01 General Principles of Writing, Block-1 Fundamental Norms of Writing, Unit-1 Introduction. 1.0 Aims and Objectives. Writing is an art, and more so creative writing, which is an expression of your creative urge. You will find this course not only informative but also stimulative of your creative impulse, in which respect it differs from all other courses. This course not only discusses the various aspects of creative writing but also helps you mold yourself into a writer. In the first unit of your creative writing course, certain fundamental ideas are discussed. It starts with the assumption that writing is a social act, and that man writes because he must share with others what he thinks and feels. Further, it informs you that the distinction between creative and non-creative writing is that between informing and revealing. The content of writing chooses the only form appropriate to it. The essence of content is experience transformed in the mind of the writer. Structure is basically the ordering of material. Style is that handling of language which expresses the content best. An aspiring writer should 1. Read extensively and with discrimination. 2. Allow his experience to mature. 3. Strike out his own path, i.e., write something individual, different. 4. Begin with keeping a private diary of thoughts and experiences. 5. Then visualize the course of the work clearly, and 6. Try to achieve maximum clarity, precision, directness, and a sense of economy. You must not only be your own critic but should also submit your work to discerning friends for criticism. 1.1 Introduction. Man is a social animal for once his primary needs such as food, shelter, and clothing are met, it becomes necessary for him to fulfill the social need of communication. He must communicate with other human beings not only to seek and impart information, but also to share with them his experiences, his joys and sorrows. The signals man makes through speech, action, or artistic creation have all this common purpose to be understood by others. Early man expressed lean self through gestures with his hands and face. This was the first mode of communication available to him. Man could also produce mutually unconnected grunts and groans to express his basic emotions like anger and satisfaction. This was another mode of communication for him. With the passage of time, with developing intelligence, he began to connect one sound with another and turn his grunts and groans into sound patterns. These sound patterns, with specific meanings attached to each and understood by all in the group, became speech. However, both gestures and speech had severe limitations. These could be useful only when members of the group were in close proximity. 1 point to the birth of writing and its importance. Imagine a situation like this. A woman with her children is away collecting wood for the fire, and her man, resting in front of the cave, suddenly spots a wild boar, which he has to chase away or hunt. How will he tell his woman where he has gone? Out of such a situation came the first cave drawings, and from these the ideograph. When thus were found inadequate, alphabets which could reproduce human speech phonetically were gradually devised. Herein lies the genesis of writing, which can broadly be defined as a system of human intercommunication by means of visible conventional markings. The earliest efforts at writing, about 6,000 years ago, were made in Egypt and Mesopotamia. They are etchings on clay tablets called cuneiform. Starting with them, man continued to improve his methods of writing. He devised several other things like parchment, birch bark, and finally paper. If the entire span of time, from the birth of the first well-defined Neanderthal man 300,000 years ago to the present time, is reduced to a time scale of 50 years, writing has been in vogue only in the last 1 year or less. Yet, the strides which human civilization has made in this 1 year of time scale have been greater than in the rest of man's history. If it is so, the credit for it must go to one single factor, that is, writing, for writing means communication, and communication means progress. In the whole of human history, these has been nothing more glorious than writing to explore oneself and to express oneself. If writing had not been invented, we would not have known anything of the past, anything of other places or people. We would have continued to live in utter ignorance of one another in our isolated little holes. Why does one write? There could be some easy yet inadequate answers to this question, such as money, vanity, or drive for fame. All these might be true to some extent. But, basically and more importantly, the answer lies in the urge of the writer to communicate a thought or a feeling, that is, to express himself, as T.S. Eliot has said, you write because you feel the need to free yourself of something. This knew that it is a psychological and aesthetic compulsion. It also becomes a social need when you write about and for other people, as in a novel or a short story, so as to be able to establish a bond with them. As for the reader, when he goes through the work of a master, he will be entering a new world with its unique social situations, characters, and emotions. 1.3 Types of writing and their functions. Our writing can be broadly classified into two categories: A. Creative, and B. Non-creative. Let us first consider non-creative writing. It deals with ideas, and its purpose is to inform, it adds to your information and widens your knowledge. Books on history, religion and science, etc., belong to this category. In order to achieve best this purpose of info, the writer will have to be analytical in an approach and present his arguments methodically and lucidly so that his writing is easy to comprehend. On the other hand, creative write is almost a spiritual activity. Its purpose is not to inform, but to reveal. A highly creative writer meditates on either concrete things of the world or on abstract thoughts like love or divinity, and pours out his feelings in his writing. Or, bringing his unique imagination into play, he may interact with life around and write about social situations and events so as to enlighten, uplift, and transport, in a manner all his own, as in the novel or short story. You can sense his individual vision in his writings. Although, on the basis of the subject matter, all writings can be divided into creative and non-creative, it is not unusual that a highly imaginative writer can produce a non-creative work in a creative manner. And such a work uplifts even as it informs. For instance, Maurice Maeterlinck wrote The Life of the Bee almost like a creative work, its language touching the fringes of poetry. Conversely, in the hands of an ordinary M, even a novel or a short story can make very dull reading, duller than any non-creative work. 1.4 The substance for writing. Every literary work, big or small, essentially consists of four aspects. 1.4.1 Content. The essence of content is experience. Experience is what one acquires from the life around, through OW's SMEs, by observing things that happen. No writer can possibly write in a vacuum. He would have seen life around him in its various situations, happy and sad, harsh and poignant, and he would have made mental notes of everything. When suddenly it occurs to him to write a story with a certain event as its center, with a particular set of characters, the right elements, which he had once accumulated in *S mind and which have in the meanwhile undergone strange transformations within him, will begin tumbling out of their own accord and take a new life on paper when one invents a story, its demands would somewhere resemble the real, otherwise, the writing will lack credibility and authenticity, which are discussed. Used in Unit 3 of Block 1. A well-written work should always give the reader and the feeling that it is real. It should never make him say, "Oh, how could this ever happen?" Hence, it is necessary for a writer to keep his eyes and ears open and closely observe the life around him so as to be able to stop those images for use in future. 1.4. To form I. The form has two meanings: firstly, literary form, and secondly, structural form. As for literary form, the content itself generally decides what form it should take. Whether a particular insight should come out as a story or a novel, or its nature and quality are such that no and G but a poem express it full is not generally decided consciously. It comes on its own with the idea of writing itself. Occasionally, the writer may be in a dilemma and has to decide, taking all factors into consideration, which form to choose. 1.4.3 Structure 1. As for its structural sense, the guiding principle should be easy communication for easy comprehension. In order to achieve a good structure, the writer should first of all order his material, that is, decide A. How much of what should be in the work, and B. In what order. Logic, common sense, and experience, drawn from one's wide reading, will help here. Just as a 500-page novel cannot be managed with only 2 characters, an 8-page story cannot have 24 characters unless the writer is a genius. One cannot go on describing the locale of the story for 7 pages, reserving all the action and its denouement to the last page. As for the order, the Aristotelian beginning, middle, and end is a time-tested sequence. But a gifted writer can always make variations. Literary tradition has provided us with several acceptable models, but if the writer is innovative, he can create newer models. It is important to bear in mind, however, that ultimately structure is only a means to an end, and one should choose only that in which the content comes through best. In its totality, a piece of writing is like a work of architecture, where every stone is well cut and fits into the other as if the two are one piece. Nothing in it should stick out. The total structure should make an aesthetically satisfying whole. The stone metaphor above applied to every single element of writing: first the word, then the sentence, the paragraph, the chapter, and finally the book itself. Each word in a sentence should work like the right musical note, and each sentence like a bar, and the book as a whole like a symphony, harmonious in its total orchestration. 1.4.4 Style. Then comes style. It is possible that two works written on the same subject, or with the same theme, should one both be structurally satisfying, yet stylistically one may be better than the other. SBLE is a manner of expressing one's thoughts and feelings in words. It is the result of long cultivated awareness of words and sentences, of the way a writer connects one sentence with another. For one writer, succor may be acceptable, while help may be more appropriate. Procrastination is tongue-twisting, while delay is more expressive. For many, more than 2 adjectives at a time may be bad writing, but for a poet like Walt Whitman, a chain of them was normal. Style is a very personal thing, it identifies the writer. 1.5 Some tips to an aspiring writer. Writing is not something which do-it-yourself books can teach. No one can teach another how to become a writer. What you get from others, or, for that matter, from this unit, are only a few tips based on experience. 1.5.1 Read in order to write. For anyone who aspires to become a writer, the first requirement is to be a good reader. One can allot assume reading the best in all literature. Perhaps, there is no one in the ed who has become a writer without having read a single word of what others have written. When we talk of reading, we do not mean reading casually, for entertainment, or because there is nothing better to do. What really matters is reading critically, analyzing for oneself every detail of the work, asking questions at every step as to why the writer has devised his plot in a particular manner, or has made the characters act the way they do, and whether it could have been done in any other way. Long years of close reading in this manner builds up a writer's equipment. It increases his vocabulary. It often provides ready answers to the questions which crop up in the process of writing. The subject for writing should occur to the writer spontaneously, either coming from inside or as a sudden reaction to something encountered in the outside world. This is what makes for inspired writing. You should not sit down to write with a question like, "What should I write?" 1.5.2 Allow your experience to ripen. The experience which you draw from the life around you should not be put on paper. As it is, that would make it a mere matter-of-fact, hackneyed piece of journalism. You should learn to make that experience your own by internalizing it. You should allow it to gestate within your mind, in the process of which you may reject a few details and adds a few others from similar experiences. This kind of gestation will also make it personal, intimate, and authentic. Hence, it is not desirable to rush for pen and paper as soon as there is a desire to write. We have used the word gestation. The act of writing is like giving birth to something. It should come of its own after it is ripe enough and when it can no longer wait. It serves no purpose to wrench it out by force. 1.5.3 Write about your experience differently. Before writing about anything, you should ask yourself whether it is something trite, which others have already written about, or something new. If it is new, there is nothing like it. It is not that a writer can always hit upon new things to write about. Life does not have a new theme to offer every day to everyone. It is the same birth, the same hunger, the same love, and the same death always. But though the themes are few and limited, their variations are unlimited. Here lies the scope for an imaginative mind. You will have to ask yourself whether you can write about the same old thing differently, bringing your own insights and perceptions into it. 1.5.4 Start with your diary. Before launching out on more ambitious projects like short stories and novels, it is best to start with your own diary and reminiscences. A few months of consistent writing of the diary, for your private reading, will give you the confidence to undertake more difficult types of writing later on. 1.5.5 Visualization, Outline and Design. Once you have the basic idea of what you want to write, and you are convinced that it will make a fairly good literary work, keep thinking about all its aspects, such as the theme, plot, situation, characters, dialogues, etc. Jot down every small detail that occurs to you. Then put down everything sequentially and prepare an outline to show how it will start, develop, and end. Before finally putting pen to paper, you should have a clear picture in your mind of the entire work. This is called visualization. There are many gifted writers who, at the time of starting, have only a vague idea of what they are going to write. But as they proceed, the unconscious mind takes over. And the writing takes very different turns and twists to produce very interesting results. This method may not be advisable for the beginner. The beginning and the end of a work are vital as in a musical piece. The first few pages are like a lead and you should be able to hold the readers with it and lead them on. In fact, there are some readers who, if they do not find the first and last few paragraphs interesting enough, would just put down the book. 1.5.6 Some do's and don'ts. 1. If there is any one single quality which distinguishes most great works, it is clarity of thought and clarity of expression. Your writing should not be dense or dull, but should shine like a mirror. 2. Precision is another such quality, precision both in respect of your thoughts and the words you use to express them. Word is God. Take your words seriously. Do not waste them. When you use a word, make sure of its precise meaning. Tools like the dictionary, thesaurus, etc., will help you to understand the correct meaning of words and their usages. 3. Do not overwrite. The days of ornate prose are over. It is possible to achieve miracles even with simple sentences. No wonder the Bible is still considered a model of good writing. 4. Similarly, avoid being pompous. Don't be very flippant either. Choose your words and expressions according to the mood of your work. 5. Also avoid archaisms, i.e., words no longer in vogue, slang, clichés, and jargon. Write as it comes to you, effortlessly. 6. Length, i.e., how much to write, is yet another important factor. The length will be determined by the scope of your subject. If you are clear in your mind about what you want to say, the end will come where it should. 7. Do not try to explain too much. Leave something to the reader's imagination also. 8. Let your writing be sprightly. A touch of humor, if it is not against the basic mood of your work, is always welcome. 1.5.7 Learn to be your own critic. After you have written a piece, read it aloud to yourself to test it on your ears. You will find several false notes, both in your statements and expressions. You will be surprised that quite a few things which you found exciting when you first put them on paper now seem bad. Remove them mercilessly. Every writer should learn to be his own critic. Once your first draft is ready, put it aside till such time as it is out of your mind. It may have to be for a week, a fortnight, or a month, or more. Now read it again. You will then see it in a fresh light. At places, it may even make you wonder how you could have been so silly as to write certain things. There will be more work for you, and the typed pages will be filled with corrections. But you should not be dismayed. 1.5.8 Seek others' opinions. For every writer, it is important to build up a close circle of creative writers and discriminating readers who are on the same wavelength and who can read through his manuscript patiently and give an honest, unbiased opinion about it. It is necessary to shed one's shyness to be able to show one's work to others and also curb one's ego to consider their criticism, however drastic it might be. But, in the end, it will be good for the work. If even after all this a work fails to pass muster, better forget about it rather than hunt for a publisher. The world will not be poorer by that one work which failed to come off. You can always make it up with your next work. 1.6 Summary. 1.6 Summing up. Man tries to fulfill not only his primary needs like food, clothing and shelter but also his social need of communication with others so as to share his experiences. But for writing we would have not known anything of the past, or of places, and other people. One writes primarily to express oneself, and not necessarily for money and fame. Writings are of two types: non-creative, and creative, the former to inform and the latter to reveal. The art of writing is line giving birth in that it is preceded by a period of gestation of ideas, etc. Writing about something new is not always possible, but writing differently of even familiar things is possible. Keeping a diary is helpful to a writer. There are some do's, don'ts. Clarity of thought and precision of expression are necessary. Overwriting and over-elaboration should be avoided. A touch of humor always enlivens the writing. Thank you. Subscribe our channel for more updates. We will see you with the next chapter.